Ambassador Zexthai felt his three hearts skip a beat as the emergency message flashed across his communication screen. The tall, blue-skinned diplomat had served the Galactic Council for 40 years, but he had never seen such urgent red warning signals before. Immediate fleet movement detected in Sector 7G, the message read. Large military force approaching quarantined Death World designation, Sol 3. Species survival threat imminent. Zexthai's thin fingers trembled as he activated the main display in the council chambers. The massive holographic screen showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. A cluster of red dots moved steadily toward a small yellow star system that most council members tried to forget existed. The Galactic Council had placed Sol 3 under strict quarantine 200 years ago. The planet was too dangerous for any civilized species to visit. Scientists called it a death world because everything about it could kill you. The air contained deadly oxygen gas that would burn the lungs of most species. The gravity was 3 times stronger than normal planets. Deadly radiation from the local star constantly bombarded the surface. Massive storms with winds strong enough to tear apart buildings happened regularly. The planet even had frozen water that fell from the sky. Worst of all, the native life forms were incredibly violent. The Council's early scans had detected creatures that hunted and killed each other for food. Some animals were larger than small spacecraft and had razor-sharp claws and teeth. The oceans contained monsters that could swallow a Council scout ship whole. 2 centuries ago, the Council had detected primitive radio signals coming from Sol 3. This meant some kind of intelligent life existed on the terrible planet. But the signals had been weak and simple. Most Council scientists believed the intelligent species would die out quickly. Nothing could survive long on such a horrible world. The quarantine had been placed to protect other species from accidentally landing on the Death World. No Council ship was allowed to go near the Sol system. It was marked on all star charts with warnings that basically said, "Stay away, or you will die." Now someone was attacking the planet. Zexthai felt sick to his stomach as he read the fleet identification codes. The attacking ships belonged to the Vorthak hegemony. The Vorthak were bad news. They were a warrior species that believed in conquering other planets through violence. They had taken over 47 star systems in the past century. The Vorthak were known for destroying entire cities and enslaving populations. They showed no mercy to anyone who stood in their way. But why would they attack a quarantined Death World? There was nothing valuable there except death and suffering. Zexthai quickly sent emergency messages to other council members. Within minutes, the great chamber filled with representatives from dozens of different species. They all spoke at once, their voices creating a terrible noise of panic and confusion. "Order! Order!" shouted Council Leader Mordak, a giant insect-like creature with 4 arms. "What is the meaning of this emergency session?" Zexthai stood up and activated the display screen. "Honored Council members, we have a serious situation. The Vorthak hegemony is attacking the quarantined Death World Sol 3. Gasps filled the chamber. Many council members had never heard of Sol 3, but they all knew about the Vorthak. "Surely this is a mistake," said Councillor Yiftal, a small gray being with large black eyes. "Why would anyone attack a Death World? There is nothing there worth taking. Our Eusklo. Our Eusklo. That is exactly my concern," Zexthai replied. "According to our old records, primitive intelligent life may still exist on Sol 3. If the Vorthak are attacking, they plan to kill any survivors." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Even though the Galactic Council had many disagreements, most members believed in protecting innocent life. The idea of watching a primitive species get wiped out made many of them feel terrible. "We must contact the Vorthak immediately," declared Mordak. "This attack violates 17 different council treaties about protecting developing species." Zexthai nodded and opened a communication channel to the Vorthak fleet. The main screen flickered and showed the ugly face of General Thaxor, the Vorthak fleet commander. Thaxor looked like a cross between a lizard and a shark, with rows of sharp teeth and cold yellow eyes. "What do you want, council weaklings?" Thaxor snarled. "We are busy with important military operations." "General Thaxor," Zexthai said politely, "we must ask you to stop your attack on Sol 3. That planet is under council protection due to quarantine regulations." Thaxor laughed, a harsh sound like metal grinding against stone. "Protection? You mean that pathetic death world? We detected radio signals coming from that system. The vermin living there have been sending messages into space for years. They think they can challenge the mighty Vorthak hegemony." "Surely you cannot be serious," said Counselor Yiftal. "Any life forms on Sol 3 would be primitive survivors, barely clinging to existence. They pose no threat to anyone. Every signal they send is an insult to our empire." Thaxor replied, "We will not allow inferior species to pollute space with their pathetic transmissions. The death world will be cleansed of all life within 3 standard days." The communication ended abruptly. Thaxor's ugly face disappeared from the screen, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. "By the 7 moons," whispered Mordak, "they plan to commit genocide against a species that cannot possibly defend itself." Zexthai felt his heart's breaking. Somewhere, in the cold vacuum of space, primitive beings were about to face the full military might of the Vorthak hegemony. The survivors on Sol 3 had somehow managed to live on a planet that killed everything else. Now they would die not because their world was too dangerous, but because cruel aliens wanted to destroy them. The Council had failed to protect innocent life. Soon, another species would disappear from the galaxy forever. General Thaxor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Crusher, watching the star system grow larger on his main screen. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with the efficiency of trained killers. The Vorthak had been warriors for thousands of years, and conquest was in their blood. "Status report," Thaxor growled, his yellow eyes never leaving the display. "Fleet is at full strength, General," replied Major Kexvor, his second in command. 50 battleships, 100 destroyers, and 30 bombardment cruisers. We are ready to cleanse the death world." Thaxor smiled, showing his sharp teeth. He enjoyed easy victories, and this would be the easiest of his career. According to intelligence reports, the 3rd planet in this system was home to some kind of primitive species that had survived on a world no civilized being could live on. The intelligence files made for interesting reading. Sol 3 was a nightmare planet with crushing gravity, poisonous atmosphere, and deadly radiation. The native life forms were incredibly violent, creatures called sharks that could bite a Vorthak warrior in half. Massive beasts, called elephants, that could trample an entire squad. Flying monsters called eagles with razor-sharp claws. Even the plants were dangerous, with some species that could poison you just by touching them. How anything intelligent had evolved on such a horrible world was a mystery. But, somehow, these creatures had not only survived but started sending signals into space. For the past 50 years, the Vorthak had been picking up transmissions from Sol 3. Most of the signals made no sense. Strange noise patterns the primitives called music. Moving pictures, showing their daily lives. Mathematical sequences that seemed to serve no purpose. At first, Thaxor had ignored the transmissions. But as years passed, the signals became stronger and more frequent. The Deathworld primitives were getting bolder. They were sending messages in all directions, polluting space with their inferior communications. Some Vorthak scientists claimed the transmissions were harmless attempts at contact. But Thaxor knew better. Any species that could survive on a Deathworld had to be naturally aggressive. The radio signals were clearly challenges, daring other species to face them in combat. The final insult had come last year, when the primitives sent out detailed mathematical information about their planet's location. They were practically announcing their coordinates to the entire galaxy. Such arrogance could not be tolerated. "General," called Navigation Officer Zarthok from his station, "we are approaching the outer edge of the system. Long-range sensors are detecting unusual activity around the third planet." Thaxor moved to the sensor station and looked at the displays. His confidence faltered slightly as he saw what the scanners had found. Instead of a primitive world with simple technology, the sensors showed massive orbital structures. Artificial satellites circled the planet in organized patterns. Space stations orbited both the planet and its single large moon. "What is this?" Thaxor demanded. Intelligence reported a primitive world with basic radio technology. "The structures appear to be highly advanced, General," Zarthok replied nervously. "We are detecting energy signatures, consistent with fusion reactors, antimatter storage, and quantum communication arrays." Thaxor's mind raced. Perhaps the Deathworld primitives had found technology left by some long-dead advanced civilization. That would explain how they had survived so long. They were using ancient machines they barely understood. "It does not matter," Thaxor declared. "Automated defense systems and scavenged technology will not save them from the might of the Vorthak hegemony. All ships, prepare for orbital bombardment." As the fleet approached Sol 3, Thaxor studied the planet through the main viewer. It looked even worse than the intelligence reports had described. Most of the surface was covered with a deadly blue substance the primitives called water. Massive white formations of frozen water vapor swirled through the poisonous atmosphere. The land masses were covered with the green growth of billions of dangerous plants. "General," Communications Officer Veltar spoke up, "we are receiving a transmission from one of the orbital stations." "Put it through," Thaxor ordered. He was curious to hear what these Deathworld savages would say before they died. The main screen flickered and showed a strange rectangular room with clean white walls. A small, weak-looking creature appeared on screen. It had pale pink skin, thin hair growing only on the top of its head, and tiny eyes. The being wore some kind of artificial covering over its body. "Unknown vessels," the creature said in perfect galactic standard language. "This is Luna Station traffic control. You are entering restricted space around the Sol system. Please state your intentions and reduce speed for customs inspection." Thaxor was shocked. The primitive was speaking galactic standard better than many council members. How had these Deathworld savages learned civilized languages? "Customs inspection?" Thaxor laughed harshly. "We are the Vorthak hegemony, conquerors of 47 worlds. We do not submit to inspection by inferior species." The small creature on the screen frowned. "Sir, I must inform you that Sol system space is protected territory. If you do not comply with traffic control regulations, defensive measures will be taken." Thaxor could not believe what he was hearing. This tiny, weak being was threatening the entire Vorthak fleet. The arrogance of these Deathworld primitives was incredible. "Defensive measures?" Thaxor roared. "You pathetic creature. We have come to cleanse your poisonous world of all life. We will turn your planet into burning glass and scatter your ashes across the void." The being on the screen remained calm. "I see. Luna, station out." Thaxor turned to his weapons officer. "Target that space station. Show these primitives the price of defying the Vorthak." "Target locked, General." "Fire." Brilliant energy beams lanced out from the iron crusher, striking the orbital station. Thaxor expected to see the structure explode into debris. Instead, he watched in amazement as shields flickered around the station, absorbing the attack. "What?" Thaxor shouted. "How did they—" Alarms suddenly blared throughout the bridge. "General?" screamed the sensor operator. "We are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. Multiple contacts approaching from all vectors." "Lok's cream doctor." Thaxor stared at the tactical display as dozens of new contacts appeared. Ships were emerging from hiding places behind asteroids moons, and orbital installations. The primitives had been waiting for them. For the first time in his military career, General Thaxor felt a cold touch of fear. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in the command chair of the UES Defiance, humanity's most advanced battleship. Around her, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency despite the red alert status. Through the main view screen, she could see the Vorthak fleet spreading out in attack formation. "Status report," Chen ordered, her voice steady and controlled. "All defense platforms are active," reported Commander Martinez from the tactical station. "Fleet elements, Alpha through Delta, are in position. Hidden batteries on Luna, Mars, and the asteroid belt are ready to fire." Admiral Chen nodded. Humanity had been preparing for this day for over a century. When they first detected alien radio signals in the 1,970 seconds, scientists realized they were not alone in the universe. By the 1,990 seconds, they had decoded enough alien transmissions to understand that Earth was considered a forbidden zone by something called the Galactic Council. The humans learned they lived on what aliens called a death world. The discovery had been both insulting and useful. If aliens thought Earth was too dangerous to visit, it gave humanity time to prepare for eventual contact. They used that time wisely. Every space program, every military development, every technological advance for the past 50 years had been focused on one goal: being ready when aliens finally showed up. Humanity knew the universe was full of hostile species. They had been listening to alien communications long enough to understand that peace was not guaranteed. "Admiral," Communications Officer Park announced, "we have confirmation that the Vorthak fired on Luna Station. Shields held, no casualties reported." "Good," Chen replied. "Send the signal. All units. This is not a drill. Humanity is now at war." Across the solar system, hidden weapons platforms powered up. Asteroid mining stations revealed themselves to be heavily armed fortresses. Transport ships dropped their disguises and emerged as combat vessels. The peaceful space installations the aliens had observed were actually the outer layer of an integrated defense network that stretched from Mercury to Pluto. "Launch fighters," Chen commanded. "All squadrons, engage at will." The space around Earth erupted with activity. Squadrons of human fighters poured out of concealed hangars. Unlike the bulky alien vessels, human ships were small, fast, and built for the harsh environment of space. They had been designed by engineers who understood that space was just another hostile environment to overcome. The Vorthak fleet quickly discovered that fighting humans was unlike anything they had experienced before. Most galactic species surrendered after losing a few ships. They valued their lives and preferred negotiation to death. Humans seemed to view combat as just another job to complete. "Their weapons are more effective than expected," reported Commander Martinez, watching the tactical display as human fighters swarmed around Vorthak vessels like angry insects. "Our hull armor is handling their energy weapons better than predicted, though." Admiral Chen was not surprised. Human ships had been built to operate in the radiation-soaked environment around Sol. They were naturally resistant to the energy weapons most alien species used. Meanwhile, human weapons had been designed to crack asteroids and punch through planetary atmospheres. They worked quite well against alien hull plating. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Thompson from the engineering station, "we're getting reports from all sectors. Human boarding parties have successfully breached 17 Vorthak vessels." Chen smiled grimly. That was the advantage humans had not expected to possess. Most alien species evolved on worlds with comfortable gravity, breathable atmospheres, and reasonable temperatures. Human marines trained in environments that would kill most aliens within minutes. Space itself was just another hostile environment that humans had learned to survive. Vacuum, radiation, extreme temperatures, zero gravity. These were simply occupational hazards for humans who had grown up on a world that tried to kill them every day. On the Vorthok flagship Iron Crusher, General Thaxor was learning this lesson the hard way. Alarms blared throughout his ship as human marines cut through his hull with tools that seemed designed for industrial construction rather than warfare. "How are they doing this?" Thaxor demanded, as his bridge crew frantically tried to respond to reports from all over the ship. "Our hull armor should stop any cutting tools." "Unknown, General," Major Kexvor replied. "But they are using some kind of plasma torch that cuts through our strongest materials, like they are made of soft wood." Thaxor did not understand that the plasma torches were modified asteroid mining equipment. Humans had spent decades developing tools to cut apart solid rock in the vacuum of space. Alien hull plating was easier to cut than a nickel-iron asteroid. The human boarding parties moved through Vorthak ships like they owned them. They wore powered armor that let them operate in any environment. The suits provided life support, radiation shielding, enhanced strength, and weapons targeting. More importantly, they allowed humans to fight in places where most aliens could not survive. "General," screamed the communications officer, "human soldiers have taken Engineering Deck 7. They are wearing some kind of protective suits that our weapons cannot penetrate." The Vorthak energy rifles had been designed to fight other Vorthak or similar species. They worked by disrupting biological nervous systems. Human-powered armor included electromagnetic shielding that made the weapons almost useless. Meanwhile, human weapons had been designed for practical purposes. Magnetic accelerator rifles threw metal slugs at incredible speeds. Plasma cutters melted through alien armor. Explosive charges, originally designed for mining operations, proved very effective at damaging alien equipment. "This is impossible," Thaxor muttered as damage reports flooded in from across his fleet. "They are primitives from a quarantined world. How can they be winning?" The answer was simple, though Thaxor would never understand it. Humans had not evolved on a safe world where they could afford to be weak. Every day of their existence had been a struggle against a planet that was actively trying to kill them. They had spent millions of years learning to fight, adapt, and survive in impossible conditions. Space warfare was just another problem to solve. "Admiral," reported Commander Martinez, "Vorthok fleet strength is down to 60%. They are requesting reinforcements." Admiral Chen studied the tactical display. The battle was going better than hoped, but she knew this was only the beginning. The Vorthak would not give up after one defeat. They would return with bigger fleets and better weapons. "Send a message to Earth Command," Chen ordered. "Inform them that first contact protocols are now in effect, and send a transmission to the Galactic Council. It's time they learned who they have been quarantining for the past 200 years. The war for humanity's place in the galaxy had begun. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Hundreds of beings, from dozens of different species, sat in stunned silence as they watched live footage streaming from automated monitoring stations near the Sol system. What they were seeing should have been impossible. Ambassador Zexthai stared at the main display screen, with his 3 hearts beating so fast he thought he might faint. The primitive Deathworlders were not being slaughtered. They were winning. "This cannot be real," whispered Counselor Yiftal, her large black eyes reflecting the light from the tactical displays. "The Vorthak hegemony has conquered 47 star systems. How can primitives from a quarantined world be defeating them?" On the screens, they watched human fighters dancing between Vorthak battleships like tiny predators hunting much larger prey. The alien vessels that had terrified the galaxy for decades were being systematically torn apart by an enemy they had never heard of. "Look at their movement patterns," said Science Advisor Morgoth, a spider-like being with 8 legs and multiple eyes. "No civilized species fights like that. They show no fear of death. They attack vessels 10 times their size without hesitation." Council Leader Mordak tried to maintain order, but his forearms were shaking. "Perhaps we should attempt to contact both sides and negotiate a ceasefire before this gets out of hand." Zexthai was already working at his communication station, but his fingers kept slipping on the controls. I am trying, honored leader. But something strange is happening. The transmissions from Sol 3 are not what we expected. What do you mean? Demanded Mordak. They are responding to our hails in perfect galactic standard. Zexthai replied, his voice filled with confusion. Not only that, but they seem to know exactly who we are and what the Galactic Council represents. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. How could primitives from a quarantined death world know about galactic politics? Put the transmission through, ordered Mordak. The main screen flickered and showed a human woman sitting in what appeared to be a military command center. She wore a crisp uniform covered with symbols that meant nothing to the council members. Behind her, other humans worked at complex control stations. Everything about the scene suggested advanced technology and military organization. Greetings, Galactic Council, the human said calmly. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, of the United Earth Space Force. We appreciate your concern about the current situation in our star system. Zek's thigh nearly fell out of his chair. United Earth Space Force? These were supposed to be primitive survivors, barely clinging to life on a hostile world. Admiral Chen, Mordak said slowly. We were not aware that your species possessed spaceflight capabilities. Our records indicate that Sol 3 is a quarantined death world, with only basic radio technology. Admiral Chen smiled slightly. Your records are somewhat out of date, Council Leader Mordak. We have been monitoring galactic communications for over 70 years. We know quite a bit about the Galactic Council, the various member species, and the political situation throughout this region of space. The silence in the council chamber was so complete that many members could hear their own breathing. These primitives had been spying on the entire galaxy for decades. You have been monitoring our communications? Asked Counselor Yiftal weakly. Of course, Chen replied matter-of-factly. When we first detected alien radio signals, we naturally wanted to learn as much as possible about our galactic neighbors. We have listening posts throughout our solar system dedicated to gathering intelligence on alien civilizations. But how? Demanded Science Advisor Morgoth. Sol 3 is a death world. The environmental conditions should make advanced technology impossible to develop. Admiral Chen's expression hardened slightly. Death world? Is that what you call our home? Interesting. From our perspective, Earth is simply the world that created us. We adapted to the conditions because we had no choice. What you see as impossible challenges, we see as the normal environment that shaped our evolution. On the tactical displays, the battle continued to rage. Vorthok ships were exploding in brilliant flashes of light, while human vessels darted between the wreckage like sharks, sensing blood in the water. Admiral, Zextai said urgently, surely we can negotiate a peaceful solution to this conflict. The Vorthok may be aggressive, but they can be reasoned with under the right circumstances. I appreciate your concern, Ambassador, Chen replied. But the Vorthak attacked our people without warning or provocation. General Thaxer made it quite clear that he intends to cleanse our world of all life. Under those circumstances, we have no choice but to defend ourselves. As if summoned by his name, General Thaxor's image appeared on a secondary screen. The Vorthak commander looked nothing like the confident warrior who had dismissed council concerns earlier. His bridge was filled with smoke and sparks. Damage reports echoed in the background. Council weaklings, Thaxor snarled. You did not warn us that the Death World primitives possessed advanced military technology. This is treachery. General, Mordak said carefully. We were not aware of their capabilities. Our information indicated only basic civilization on Sol 3. Basic civilization? Thaxor laughed bitterly. They have weapons that cut through our strongest armor, like it is made of paper. Their soldiers fight in environments that would kill our warriors in seconds. These are not primitives. They are nightmare creatures spawned by a nightmare world. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the growing panic. General Thaxor, you came to our home system with the stated intention of committing genocide against our entire species. You fired on our installations without warning. Did you expect us to simply stand by and let you murder our families? You are monsters, Thaxor screamed. No civilized species fights like you do. You show no mercy, no fear, no respect for the natural order. The natural order? Chen's voice became cold as space itself. General, you represent a military empire that has conquered 47 star systems through violence and intimidation. You came here expecting to find helpless victims. Instead, you found a species that will not roll over and die just because you demand it. The council members watched in fascination as two very different philosophies clashed. The Vorthak believed in conquest through superior force. They expected their enemies to surrender when faced with overwhelming odds. Humans seemed to view overwhelming odds as simply another problem to solve through violence and determination. Council, Thaxor demanded, I request immediate reinforcements. The Vorthak hegemony will not be defeated by Deathworld savages. Reinforcements will not help you, General, Admiral Chen said quietly. You made a fundamental error. You assumed that survival on Earth made us weak. In reality, it made us the most dangerous species in this galaxy. Every day of our existence has been a fight against a planet that actively tries to kill us. We learned to fight, or we learned to die. Most of us chose to fight. The transmission from General Thaxor's ship suddenly cut off. Emergency reports flooded in from the automated monitoring stations. The Vorthak flagship had been destroyed. Admiral Chen's image looked directly at the council members. The immediate threat to our system has been neutralized. However, we understand that this incident has larger implications. Humanity is ready to take our place in galactic civilization, but it will be on our terms, not as supplicants begging for acceptance. What are your terms? Asked Mordak weakly. Simple, Chen replied. We want full recognition as a sovereign species, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. We want to establish trade and diplomatic relationships with peaceful species. And we want it clearly understood that any future attacks on humanity will be met with the same response General Thaxor received. The chamber fell silent again. For 200 years, the Galactic Council had protected the galaxy from the dangerous death world in Sector 7G. Now they were learning that they had actually been protecting the galaxy from humanity. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Ambassador Elena Chen stood in the Great Chamber of the Galactic Council wearing the blue and gold uniform of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. She was Admiral Sarah Chen's younger sister, but where the Admiral commanded fleets, Elena commanded words and negotiations. The chamber looked different now. Earth's solar system was no longer marked as a forbidden quarantine zone on the great star charts. Instead, it showed as a recognized sovereign territory with full diplomatic status. The change had not been easy for many council members to accept. The council recognizes Ambassador Elena Chen of the United Earth Coalition, announced Council Leader Mordak. His forearms had stopped shaking months ago, but Elena could still see nervousness in his compound eyes. You may address the assembly. Quote, Elena walked to the central speaking platform with the confident stride of someone who represented a species that had recently defeated one of the galaxy's most feared military forces. Behind her, the massive view screen showed images of Earth, blue oceans, white clouds, green continents that had once been considered too dangerous for any civilized being to visit. Honored council members, Elena began, in perfect galactic standard, I come before you today to present the Sol Accords, a comprehensive framework for humanity's integration into galactic civilization. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some species were still afraid of the Deathworld humans, who had appeared out of nowhere to reshape galactic politics. Others were excited about the possibilities that came with having such powerful allies. Most were simply confused about how to deal with a species that had gone from unknown to dominant in a matter of months. The first provision of the Soul Accords establishes Earth's solar system as a sovereign territory under human control. Elena continued. We welcome diplomatic missions and trade relationships, but all traffic through our system must follow our regulations and respect our authority. Counselor Yiftal raised one thin arm. Ambassador Chen, many of our member species are concerned about security arrangements. Your people's military capabilities are quite impressive. Elena smiled. I understand your concerns, Counselor. The Sol Accords include detailed provisions for peaceful coexistence. Humanity has no interest in conquering other worlds or building an empire. Earth provides everything we need. However, we reserve the right to defend ourselves and our allies against aggression. What about trade? Asked Trade Commissioner Velnoth, a six-legged creature covered in purple fur. Earth's resources and technology could revolutionize galactic commerce. We are very interested in trade. Elena replied. Humans are naturally curious about other species and cultures. We have much to offer and much to learn. However, trade relationships must be based on mutual respect and fair exchange. Ambassador Zexthai stood up from his seat. Over the past months, he had become one of humanity's strongest supporters on the Council. The thin blue alien had spent considerable time studying human culture and history. What he found both frightened and fascinated him. Ambassador Chen, Zexthai said, could you explain to the Council why humanity chose to reveal itself now? You could have remained hidden for many more years. Elena nodded. That is an excellent question. Ambassador Zexthai. The truth is that we were forced to reveal ourselves by the Vorthok attack. However, we had always planned to eventually make contact. We simply wanted to do so from a position of strength, rather than weakness. She gestured to the view screen, which now showed images of human cities, spaceports, and orbital installations. For over a century, humanity has been preparing for this moment. We studied your languages, your cultures, your technologies, and your politics. We learned about the various conflicts and alliances that shape galactic civilization. When we finally revealed ourselves, we wanted to be ready to participate as equals, not as primitives begging for protection. But why wait so long? Asked Science Advisor Morgoth. Your species clearly possessed the technology for interstellar travel decades ago. Because we understood the realities of galactic politics, Elena answered. Species that appear weak or primitive often become victims of conquest or exploitation. We saw what happened to the Zephyrians when they made first contact 50 years ago. Their world was strip-mined by the hegemony corporations. We saw what happened to the gentlefolk of Kepler 442 when they requested council protection. They became dependent on others for their survival. The chamber fell silent. Elena was describing uncomfortable truths that many council members preferred not to discuss openly. Humanity chose a different path. Elena continued. We used the time you gave us to become strong enough to defend ourselves and our interests. When we finally joined galactic civilization, it would be as partners, not as subjects. And the Vorthok attack? Prompted Mordak. Elena's expression hardened slightly. The Vorthok made the mistake of assuming that survival on Earth made us weak. They learned otherwise. General Thaxor's remaining forces have withdrawn to their core territories. Our intelligence suggests they are telling other aggressive species to avoid human space. That was an understatement. The complete destruction of a Vorthok battle fleet had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Several other militaristic species had quietly cancelled planned expansion operations after learning what had happened at Sol. What about the future? Asked Counselor Yiftal. How does humanity see its role in galactic affairs? Elena smiled warmly. Humanity wants to be a positive force for peace and prosperity. We have much to contribute. Our experience surviving on a challenging world has taught us to solve problems that others might consider impossible. We offer our services as mediators, explorers, and protectors. Protectors? Mordak asked nervously. The galaxy has many species like the Vorthak, Elena explained. Predators who prey on the weak and defenseless. Humanity is willing to help protect species that cannot protect themselves. We will not stand by and watch genocide or slavery simply because it is politically convenient. The implications of her words were clear. Humanity was volunteering to be the galaxy's enforcers against aggressive species. Given what had happened to the Vorthak, most council members found the offer both reassuring and terrifying. In conclusion, Elena said, the Sol Accords represent humanity's commitment to being a responsible member of galactic civilization. We seek partnership, not domination. We offer protection, not conquest. We want to help build a galaxy where all species can thrive in peace and prosperity. She paused and looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many council members as possible. However, she continued, her voice taking on a harder edge, let me be absolutely clear about one thing. Humanity will never again tolerate threats against our home world or our people. The galaxy is large enough for all of us to coexist peacefully. But those who choose violence will discover why nothing else in the universe evolved on a world like Earth. The vote to ratify the Sol Accords was unanimous. Not because every species loved humanity, but because every species understood that opposing them would be a fatal mistake. As Elena Chen walked out of the council chambers, she reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, Earth had been a forgotten quarantine zone. Today, it was the unofficial capital of galactic peacekeeping operations. Behind her, council members began the long process of adjusting to a new reality. The galaxy now had protectors who had been forged by a world that tried to kill them every day. For peaceful species, this was wonderful news. For aggressive species, it was their worst nightmare. The age of humanity had begun.